Welcome back to this latest episode of Japan's Top Business Interviews. I'm your host, Dr. Rex Roy, President, Dale Carnegie Tokyo Training Japan. My special guest today is Mr. Mitsuharu Kurokawa, who is the president of Toraya here in Japan, which is a fantastic company.
Thank you.
Fantastic products. You do Japanese traditional sweets.
Yes.
And I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
Of Toraya. I've been to your headquarters, I've been to your branches many, many times.
Thank you so much.
It's one of my favorite things to do in Tokyo. It's fantastic. So, but I just can't remember now, which generation of the family are you to run the business?
I am the 18th generation.
18th generation, wow. I don't think we've ever had anyone who's been more than the 18th generation, which is
longer
incredible.
than a lot of companies, yes.
So that goes right back to Kyoto originally?
Yes,
and what year did it start in Kyoto?
We don't exactly know, but it's in 1500s.
1500s?
That we started, yes.
Right, so
from
the Sengoku Jidai, the Warring States period?
Yes, during that time, like or more like Muromachi.
Even Muromachi period.
Yes.
Wow, that's
so
incredible.
from all these sweets that we make and the roots of it, like if we look back to it, we understand it's from Muromachi period.
Yeah.
One of the oldest record that we have is to have us like we provided sweets to the royal family and the emperor back in the time.
So imperial family right back in that period was having your sweets.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Goyoze Tenno. So he was there in 1500s.
1500,
so,
right?
Yes.
And you moved to Tokyo when?
That was for the Meiji Restoration. So when the capital of Japan has moved from Kyoto to Tokyo, we also decided to move from Kyoto to Tokyo.
Right, right. Well, it's a one thing is for foreigners, for us, trying to get your own kid to do the same business as the dad or the daughter to do the same business as the dad or the mother, whatever. Very hard, No, I want to do my own thing. I want to be independent. I want to run my own thing. I don't want to be doing what you're doing. So to be 18th generation of continuity in the one family for us as foreigners is like, wow, that's really something.
It's pretty long, yes.
It's long.
So I guess what we have, as you kindly said, I also like, I'm also the fan of Toraya. So I really love sweets. So since I was little, I always ate the sweets and I always loved it. That's one of the big part. The other big part is that I respect my father, just like all these young kids, young boys, like they always look up to the father, and I also did for my father. I wanted to be like him, and finally, I guess like because it's a generational business, and I was sort of being told, even since I was little, that I would probably be taking over, especially from my grandparents, not my parents. And so for that, I was always thinking that I wanted to do it. And what we do is, I think it's great. It's a very, it's a business, but at the same time, like it's a cultural thing that we have been passing on for hundreds of years. So
it's a fantastic company. And also, I remember I was telling you, when you closed your shop on, I guess that's our Yamadori near Mitsubishi, Mitsui,
near Twin Tower.
Near the Twin Towers there, when you closed that down and then you rebuilt, right?
Right.
You put a notice there. And I remember I wrote an article about that on my blog because it just didn't say, like typical Japanese company would just say,
maybe.
Okay, this store will close on such a date, we'll reopen on such a date. Your Stein didn't say that. It talked about thanking the customers. Right. It talked about some of the customers as a young boy who used to come with the mother, and the mother would let him go and buy the sweets by himself and hide while he was in the store. And there was a gentleman who, a bit unusual for men to have such a sweet tooth, who'd come very regularly. And there's an older lady who used to come, but then she became hospitalized, and the family would come and buy and take them to the hospital for her. You included these little episodes, these little stories about your customers in that little notice about we're going to rebuild here.
Thank you.
And I thought, wow, that is unusual in Japan. I thought, this company really values the customer, and they're telling the stories of your products, because you mentioned the products, what the little boy, little Yorkan he had.
Actually, that was written by my father. Father. So he was the president at that time, and so basically the building before, like it was there for about 60 years, since like 1963, I think. And so there's also almost like 60 years of the history in that particular building, and also the store. So my father, I think, like since he was pretty young, like maybe a little bit before 20, like he was always with the building, so he had a lot of like memories, sentiment as well. And like when we cross on the shop or building, we can obviously say nothing or say something. But when he thought about it, he just basically wanted to say these things out loud from the bottom of his heart.
I felt he's expressing his I didn't know your dad wrote it, but I felt he's expressing some heartfelt appreciation to your customers. And
so I think that was a little bit different from all these other companies, as you say.
Exactly.
And I think the people who read it was pretty happy that, like, you know, this president of the company, he was already like late 70s, like is talking about all these little stories about the customers, and that he cared about all these moments with the customers. So I think by expressing it, actually quite a bit of people had referred to it, reposted it, and that's how it got a little bit.
I wrote a whole article on it, did a podcast on it, and blasted it out to the world. You know, as an example, it's a great example of customer focus, you know, customer sensitivity, awareness. But in a lot of Japanese companies who have, you know, generations taking over, it's very common that and it's usually the son in Japan, but not necessarily always, but usually the son, that the next generation goes somewhere else and they work somewhere else for a number of years, and then they come back into the business rather than going straight into the business. Now, how was it in your case? Did you, you're speaking in English.
Thank you.
If your dad was able to speak English like you can, he'd be sitting where you are, but we never got around to doing that as a podcast. But when I heard you speak at the French Chamber, I realized, Mitsu's English is fantastic. He can come and talk in English about the company. And so that's why I invited you. But did you go and do something else after school, or go straight in, or how did that work?
So I went abroad to study, like United States. So I went to high school in New Jersey, and afterwards I went to a business school in Boston called Babson College. And so after that, by that time, my father was already over 60-year-old, and he like, I was born when he was 41. So I had a huge age gap between myself and him. And even if I were to work in different companies, I would only be able to work for a couple of years or like 3. And I didn't think it's going to give me like enough like knowledge or experience to say that I did work in a different company and all this. So I wanted to have more time with my father is one thing. The other thing is that by having worked in Toraya, like right after, I went into factory, and I worked there for in the production for about 3 years. For the third
at the
year.
Gemba, as we say in Japanese, right where the production line is. Wow,
so like, you know, as all the other employees, like if I were to be in the company right after college and just like work as similar to them, I thought I would be able to understand more about like how they work, and also I'll be able to make a great communication for the future. So that's what I did actually.
But you know, your product for me, I mean, it's a food product. It's a Japanese traditional sweet, but man, it is like art.
Thank you.
I mean, honestly, for people who are watching this, they may not know what I'm talking about, but just go and do a search on Japanese traditional sweets and have a good look at the photographs, because when I go to your stores and I look at the display, it's just mind-boggling. It's like, this is so sophisticated. It's so art-like. It's food, but it's like art. It's incredible. So in that period when you went into the factory, was that factory in Tokyo, or this is back in Kyoto?
It's in Tokyo. So I was in Tokyo for two years, and afterwards I went to Paris. So we have a shop in Paris.
Yeah, that's right, you have a shop in Paris. That's right.
Yes. So I was there for 1 year.
Right. That's a good experience too. Yeah. And so, you know, it's interesting, isn't it? Like you obviously are going to become the president of the company at some point.
Right.
And all the workers know that. They know that this company's had 18 generations of the Kurokawa family running this.
Yes.
And Mitsu is going to be the next line.
Right.
So as a person who's going to go into that role, it's not so easy, is it? Like for me, I've worked in big companies.
Yes.
I'm just a person in a big company, and I've got colleagues, and we can treat each other, you know, as we like, because colleagues and whatever. Not knowing that any of us are ever going to be the president. Maybe we might be one day, who knows, but chances are probably not. You know? But in your case, everyone knows, this guy here working with me is going to be my boss one day. So I'm just wondering, does that make it a little bit difficult for you to connect with people? Because, Japan is very good on honne and tatemae separation of what's the superficial reality and the actual reality. And they give you a lot of tatemae face and, but actual reality, what they're thinking is different. So how did you handle that?
That's what I was thinking when I was like sort of in middle school. So when I was in middle school, like I was in Gakushuin, which is like a private school, which
is where the imperial family goes to school, by the way. Gakushuin, very famous school.
Thank you. From I went in from elementary school, but it's there up until college. So, but if I were to keep going in and graduated from the college and went into the company, maybe I would not be as different from other people, and also through my life I haven't challenged anything, and that would have made people in the company to look at me differently. Maybe I thought so. So that's the reason why I wanted to go to the States and also went to the business school, so that I will be having like a set of skills, including speaking, to be able to speak in English and also to learn about business. So there was some kind of edge that I had during my school years, which differentiated myself from other people in the company. So and also another thing is that I during my high school time and also college time, there's quite a long holidays during especially summer, so 3 month holidays.
3 months in Japan.
So I usually went into factories and also sometimes shops or distribution center to make the packaging and all this. So I was making a part-time jobs. So as for United States colleges or high schools, if I were to do those kind of activities or an internship in during high school, or it will help career in getting into college, different colleges and stuff. So for that I also chose Toraya during my school year, so that they will know who I am. They will know what kind of person I am and all this. And so because of that, I think the transition was pretty good.
Pretty good. Well, it's very strategic on your part. I mean, young man in high school thinking ahead. Okay, I'm the 18th generation. I'm going to succeed my father, who's number 17. I can't expect the workers to treat me like everybody else, because I'm not like everybody else. And also, if I'm going to be different, I know I will go to the States and be educated there. I'll go to business school there. So if I'm going to be different, let me be different in a really good way, in a really powerful, positive way, so people can say, well, he's not, we have in Japanese that term, the bakabon, right? The young successor who blows up the company because they're useless, right?
Yes.
I'm not going to be like that, and people will know, he's well educated, he's international, he's going to be a good steward for the company, our jobs are going to be secure, we can look up to him as the future. That was very strategic on your part.
Yes, because that's something that I am fortunate to be able to do, which many other people wouldn't be able to do in a way. And so getting the skills within Japan and compete against other people for which college you went to or how much you studied. I'm sure there will be much better people in Japan. But if I were to go abroad, then the competition will I will be different. So that's one thing. But the other thing is that I was focused on production, which is the core of the business. So we make Japanese sweets, wagashi, and so making of Japanese sweets is what my family has been doing it for over 400 years. And for sweets making, we have a lot of artisans but whether I am the 18th generation or son of the president or whatsoever, the sweet, the final products talks on its own. So if I made something that's not as good as what it should be in the shops, they wouldn't accept it, obviously. And they wouldn't be oh, you did a great job, and da 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 da. So that's not gonna happen for the factory. And rather they would be scolding at me. They'd be why are you doing this? Da, 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 da. So for they're very serious, and they don't really care who you are. And what they care is whether the sweets you made was good or not. So that was a good entering point for me into the basically company. So.
Well, Japan, Monozuguri, the production manufacturer, is one of the core words in Japan, and it's a central part of Japanese business culture. It's highly respected. And when you look at different television programs, they'll show someone doing artisan type of work, multiple generations, and this person's been doing this for 50 years or 60 years. In Japan, that's highly respected as someone who's an expert artisan in that area. So I can imagine that in the production in the factory that people are very serious about the quality, because that's how they see themselves. We are experts in production. We are high quality. We've got a brand name. We have to defend the brand name, and everybody, you or anyone else, has got to make sure we defend the brand name. So that's interesting too. That's interesting too. So I guess, what was it like in Paris though? Because I imagine, after spending your time growing up in Japan, and then you go to Boston, was high school also in Boston?
High school I was in New Jersey.
So it's like those New Jersey, so near New York. So then you go to Boston, then you're in Paris, right? So again, totally different. And Japan, from what I can see anyway, I'm not French, but I've noticed that the French have a long tradition of studying Japan. They have a long regard for Japan culture. I mean, one of my great favorite types of art is Impressionist art. And last year, went for my son's graduation in Bristol. On the way, we dropped into Paris, and we took the day trip down to Giverny, to Monet's house, and the garden, which is there. And you walk into the house, the whole house is full of Japanese prints.
Oh,
the
really?
whole house is full of Japanese prints.
Okay.
Incredible, because in those days, when they were buying the porcelain from Japan, the wrapping paper had Japanese prints on it. These artists, when they look at the perspective,
the wood print,
they look at the perspective that the artist took on a particular scene. It was different through a Western perspective. And so they became influenced by that. And so they studied Japanese art very thoroughly. So I think that Japan-French connection is very strong. And French culture also, food is very important, quality is very important. So there's a lot of similarities, isn't there?
So in terms of like cultural thing and all this, like, so United States is a very new country, and it's very accepting of like many race or gender or culture or whatsoever. Like at the same time, because it's there, and there are lots of conflicts in there too. But I feel that, like, in terms of modern culture, America is great, and there are many parts of the United States which is like totally like leading the world. But as opposed to that, when I went to Paris, I realized that there's like a huge culture, like and also history. So and that lineage is going through. So like in terms of like companies in the States, there aren't so many companies which is like over 100 years or 200 years. But if you go to France, there are so many companies, including wine companies, clothing companies, or banks, or like textile whatsoever, and that's more than like hundreds of years. And so they kind of have the similar sense, like in terms of like how people perceive things, like to like in Japan, or like it's similar to Japan. So
they respect the longevity, they respect the history, the tradition.
For instance, like Japanese sweets is very unique things. Maybe I wouldn't say it's sushi, but like it's like some new food for anybody else who's outside of Japan. But like in France, like in America, so for wagashi, like Japanese sweets, when they eat it, if they didn't like it, they will like judge it right away. It's like, okay, this is not my thing, like bye. But
for Americans, it's probably not sweet enough.
Depends.
Well, generally speaking, Japanese sweets are not super sweet. They have some sweetness, but it's not like massive sugar hit, right? It's rather subtle.
Yes.
And the texture is a very different texture to Western cake, and it's got a depth of flavor. And then the presentation is incredible.
Thank you. But so Japanese sweets is like a little bit maybe like less intense, because we our sweets is more vegan, and I would say like we don't use like butter or like dairy, like milk or whatsoever. So that's what that also makes it like a little bit lighter. So so when I went to France, like French people, like when they eat something new like wagashi, I mean sometimes they don't like it or they don't understand it, but when they eat it, they will be like, okay, what is this made out of? Like they have interest in the food and stuff that is like coming from the culture, I would say. So like although
that was a very bold move though, to open a Japanese sweet store in Paris.
Yes.
So what was the thinking there? I mean, that I don't see too many Japanese wagashi around the world in major cities, and Toraya did that, which is incredible.
So 1980, my grandfather decided to start open a shop in Paris. So I guess like my great grandfather's time, there weren't so many troubles around the world. So he was actually the minister in Japan, and he once like traveled to Switzerland for Geneva because like he had to go to the WHO meeting and stuff. And at that time, like he flew an airplane, and he even made a sweets out of like the image, like outside of the like the airplane like window, the like sunset or sunrise was like very beautiful, and so he made something red and all this. But anyhow, like so my grandfather's period, it was after the war is done and Japan had a huge recovery, and in the end there was like an economic boom in Japan and all this. So he was able to travel a little bit more, I think, as compared to like all these generations before he was 16 and before 15. Like he was able to travel a lot, and when he went to Paris, like he thought there are lots of similarities with Japan and Japan, especially Kyoto, where we were originally from, to the city of Paris, because they're preserving great old architectures and all this. Yes, traditions and food culture, and also like how the city is very well planned to be.
Mr. Houseman fixed that up. He cleared all the buildings and built some grids like Kyoto's in grids,
yes.
So, which is also based on Chang'an in China as well. So another grid city.
Yes, totally. Yeah. So those things, like he was like he was in the Teikoku University, which is like now the Tokyo University, but he was more,
which is, by the way, the most elite university in Japan.
Thank you. And he was also always like looking into culture and art. So I guess like he felt the cultural part of France was like great, including food culture. So that's why he wanted to introduce like Japanese sweets, so that like maybe French people would understand what we do.
Well, I think it's tremendous. I haven't, to be honest, I don't get to Europe that often. Well, after COVID, couldn't go anywhere. But
yes. And
I didn't get a chance to go to Toraya when I was in Paris last year, but I'm sure it's very successful there. In terms of leadership, you, let's say you're 18th generation, you very strategic from you're at high school, thinking about how to differentiate yourself and be respected as a leader.
Right.
What have you found works well to get people in the company engaged behind your direction for the company? Because I know, your dad's handed over the business to you. I know he's still there, but you're putting your mark on the business, and you want people to come with you where you're going to take the company. What have you found works well to get people behind you, engaging?
So I don't think I have a clear answer, because I'm also at the earlier stage of like starting of the presidency, because I became president 3 years ago. But anyhow, like how at this moment, how I'm perceiving it is, there, like I would say a few different ways to think about it. So, I mean, after all, like Toraya's mission has never changed. It's always been striving to make the best sweets as possible, and also to be providing it to the customers in the best possible condition or whatsoever. So that goal is not set by myself, but it's set by the like ancestors and everybody who has founded our company. So it can be a very good point to reach for us. So that we can kind of set the mind together, and also like I guess like the leadership has been changing over time. for me, I'm not thinking I'm the smartest person or I have the right decision all the time. So I always listen to everybody's like ideas, and in the end, somebody has to decide. And if many people decided to decide, then the the direction of the company will be going to the right or left or back or
all over the place, right?
All over the place. But because I would be taking like other people's opinions in the way that Toraya sort of wants, and I think that's one of the ways I'm thinking. So I'm telling all the people in the company that, okay, obviously like I'm going to be leading and also directing in different ways, and I am actually working on it. But at the same time, it's a company with like about 900 employees, and I cannot be deciding on what everybody's going to do every single day or how so I'm making like a lot of things up to them, I would say, like changing of the structure of the company, thinking about all these new human resource systems, like all this. So these ideas, okay, I'm the president and I have the responsibility, so I have to approve it, or if I think it's wrong, I would have to point it out. But I'm making these discussions like open to everybody. So more recently, I feel that many of the managers and everybody is like starting to get their ideas into the companies, and
well, let's talk about idea generation in a moment. One of the things I was interested in is it's very. I've never been in your situation to take over from my dad, so
yes.
I don't have that experience. But I can imagine, your father has been running the company his whole life, basically, and then he hands over to you, and you say you're 3 years in.
Yes.
So how did your father handle that? Because, the classic would be you're both in the room.
Yes.
Everyone's looking at your father.
Yes.
And not looking at you. They're looking at your father because he's been the guy who's been running the business. Now you're the president, but they're still looking at him. So how did you work that between the two of you, that you would take over and people would look at you?
I was the vice president when he was the president, and I'm now the president and he's the chairman. So I like, in terms of the hierarchy of the company, it didn't change. So for me, I thought things not going to change as much, which is okay for me. I respect my father, and I think he has he's a great decision maker, and so I was going to support him. But he after he gave me the presidency, he pretty much let me do it.
He stepped back.
Yeah, pretty much he stepped back. Obviously he comes to the company, he does jobs that he does, but then in terms of making of decisions of what to do about the companies and all this, he pretty much stepped down or stepped
which
out.
Is which is amazing, because often when you've been the president, you've been running the thing for so long, it's your baby. To be able to hand that on to somebody else and actually step back, that's not easy.
Totally. It's not easy, but I think he was very, very smart, I would say. I totally don't mind him being there, but by him stepping out, it was very clear to everybody in the company that he's stepping out, and also I am going to be leading. So the transition was amazing, thanks to my dad.
Yeah, no, that's it sounds simple. Okay, son takes over from dad, but not that easy, and
usually it's not that easy. In many cases, a lot
doesn't
of
work sometimes.
Son and father work together and they fight and all this. But he decided that at one point I have to make that
step back.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's
and that happens too with founders. Founders will start the business, it's their baby, and then they get to a certain age, they think about succession planning, and they put someone in who's the president. But the president does things a little bit of a different way. There's many different paths to the mountaintop, right? And they don't like that. I wouldn't do it that way. It can't be right. And then they fight, and then someone quits, and got to find a new president.
Yes.
So it's not easy.
We always see in Japanese billionaire companies, all the leading somebody who founded the company. He decided to have this one as a successor, but he decided not to, and he stepped back, but he comes back in
again.
Yeah. So this happens all the time. Maybe it might happen for my case as well, but at this moment,
3 years so far,
it's going very well. And pretty recently I went to Dubai, and I was listening to the conversation between AI minister of Dubai, and he's 34-year-old, and he was appointed when he was like 27, I think, and he was talking to Sam Altman. He's the open AI guy, so the person who made the ChatGPT. And one of the things that impacted me was that AI minister was asking Sam Altman, what would we do like if we switch positions for one day? Like, what would you do? Then actually Sam Altman asked him, oh, do we have to switch positions? Because like that means like, there's somebody who's taking over his place. So he was thinking that, then like talking to, but anyhow, like, so AI minister told him that, just to be taking my position. And so Sam Altman answered firstly, he said like he's gonna create a governmental structure and think about that in AI, and AI minister told him he's already been doing it, but it's not the global level. So I think he's like doing things for UAE and also maybe the regional part, but not like a global level. But he's working on it with the AI. And then Sam Altman was like, kept thinking. And he's like, let me change the answer. And he spoke about IAEA, the international like atomic like nuclear energy like association, and how they should function in terms of like providing energy and also like safety measure and all this, because that's like the biggest like part which could impact. And some Altman was like, I think that's like a pretty good thing to do. And AI minister was like, done, I'm gonna do it now. And there were more than thousands of people in that whole from all over the world. And as the AI minister of one country, he's also looking after like the region as well. And he just speak with this bright guy, like young bright guy, and when he says something and he takes that and says it in front of everybody like right away. I think that's a great leadership. Like a lot of cases, many people think about, okay, whether I said that or somebody said that and I took the idea. Like that's not the problem for the AI minister for that moment. And I think that kind of leadership is very good for the ages now, because we have so much information and everybody have ways to get the knowledge and all this. At the same time, leaders have to make decisions, and when they make decisions, does it have to be led by them? It could be also led by somebody who has a great knowledge.
And you mentioned before that you're looking to get ideas from within the organization.
Yes.
So it's not just your own ideas, you're actually getting others. And so often in Japan, it can be difficult to get ideas from everybody, because normally in any group, if you call on ideas, people look around the room. So-and-so joined before me in the company. They're senior to me. So-and-so is older than me. They're men, I'm a woman, so I won't say much. Or I'm young, everyone's older, or that higher status person. Everyone's suppressing themselves rather than speaking up. So what have you found works well to let maybe the people who are a bit younger, a bit more junior, a bit more female, in Japan's case anyway, actually have a voice and let their ideas come up? Because often in Japan, it's self-selecting. And they're, particularly people who are rather analytical, often their brain is moving very deep down, layer of complexity before they speak, whereas others will be out there very quickly with their ideas, quick movement, boom, but don't go so deep. So you need both.
Right.
But often the people who are quick are the ones whose ideas get taken up. And the people who are a bit quieter, a bit slower, their ideas never get taken up because they never come up. They're never allowed to come up. So have you found a way that really gets all of the ideas out of people?
No, I wouldn't say like I take all the people, all the ideas that comes out from people. So I would, like, there are people, as you say, that who are quiet but thinking very deeply. So it's very important to get that idea out. So we do all the ways to like achieve that. But
how? Do you have any particular techniques how you do that?
Not necessarily. Just try to like have like so like this year we made some sort of vision to lead the company and have we should think about working, whether you're a person who's in a production or who's in a distribution center, shops, or like office, like, there are ways in which like we want to think. And so we selected like 30-year-olds and maybe some people who are older too, to form a group, and they would be functioning as like, getting all these ideas of what Toraya should be doing, like how we should be doing. And they spoke with all these different division and like all the key people in the division, and just like get all the ideas out. And after getting all the ideas out, we laid it out, we categorized it, and so that it's something like, sometimes personal, something that has to work as a company or this or that, and so that way there are some people like who don't speak out so much, but there are some people who like, in the lab and quietly doing her job, and in the end like that's like a solid job. So by like having to have that kind of like, time to get the voices out, I think we are doing it in that way. And actually I also wanted to point out that like as you were mentioning that successor and also the founder, I think it's very different. And founder, like he or she has created the company, and he's been like making the company, so the career vision, and all the time like when the succession comes in, there are tough times. But for me, like I am receiving something that has been passed on for 17th generation.
So it's working.
Working
well.
So before like, thinking about what do I do, I also think about how do I pass it on. So it's different from all the founders, because a lot of like, people who founded the company, they are very focused on like their presence and also their time, but they don't necessarily think about the succession of the company.
Well, they're going to sell the company.
Yes,
is what they're thinking, and cash out and retire, right? And they don't think
but,
about this is going to last 18 generations. It'll last one generation. I'll make a lot of dough. I can retire, and someone else can run the company. So mentality is totally different.
Yes. I mean, that happens a lot in the US, because I think there are not so many generational companies, but once you have generational companies which is making wine for hundreds of years, like you would not necessarily want to sell it outside of the company or family or even country, like so I think the mentality is a little bit different from like, I'm not saying which is better or worse, but I think there is that kind of mentality where like as my father is also the same, like he was always thinking about passing on as well. So that's like one of the big difference that I feel. And in the latter stage of like, I think those people who found the company, I mean, there are some people who's actually thinking about like selling it to other companies or people, but then there are also people who are not really thinking about that at all, but just doing the job as the person will always be doing until the person dies. But at one point I feel that like a lot of like, them, when they come to the elderly age, they would realize, oh, what am I going to do with this company? Like, am I going to give it to
and that's
my
what's happening in
children?
Japan now. A lot of company owners are in their 70s, no succession plan, and they've been concentrating on the business their whole life, and now it's like, oh, okay, what am I going to do? And so it's creating a bit of a mini M&A boom in Japan. There's a lot of M&A specialist companies who are targeting, trying to help them with succession to find someone to take over for them, because they haven't been concentrating on it, right? In terms of, again, you mentioned you went into the factory after you came, well, you went to Paris and you came back and you're working in the factory in your holidays when you're going through school, and then came back into the factory after Paris. What have you found works well to build trust with people in the company from your leadership point of view? How do you build the trust? So you, again, it's an existing business, it's a well-defined business, it's a well-operated business, there's nothing broken, it's all good. But you are still the leader, and you've got to think of the future, where we're going. And Japan's population is declining. We're not having enough Japanese anymore. The Japanese youth population is shrinking every year. That's going to impact the size of the market here. You've got there's the things that you're going to hit are going to be different from what previous generations had to face. So it's different again. So what do you think about building trust with people? How do you found works well?
It's very daily things, I think. It's just like saying good morning in the morning, coming to the office, doing your job. Don't be late for things, or like don't sleep through or whatsoever. Like, you know, it's such a small things, but like all these like little things, eye contacts, or all this, like, you know, everyday thing is the things that gives you the trust. Because like, who do you trust is like the person who you know. So unless you know that person, it's very difficult to trust. So it's pretty important to show like who you are, is one thing. Another thing is that obviously like you do make right decisions, you do make right plans, you make a strategy, plot it out, start to say to other people, start executing it and making it successful. So once you know, you start talking about your strategy to your employees, and then sometimes they obviously like it's something that's going to happen in the future, so they would be wondering, okay, is it really going to happen? And as things go larger and larger, and as the vision goes, like vision can be very, very large, and if it actually leads to that big vision that this person is talking about, even the small steps, if that person doesn't like, you know, forgive, not forgive, I'm sorry, oh my gosh, and if that person never like give up and keeps doing, and that kind of, you know, daily work ritual and how you like go for work is what brings you trust. I think you admit if you're wrong. There are lots.
Well, that's a good point. You know, often leaders think, well, I can't admit I'm wrong because my credibility, the trust in me will go down if I admit I made a mistake or I'm wrong. But I think it goes the other way. I think, you know, leaders who can admit, okay, I thought this would work.
Yes.
We tried it. It didn't work. That's on me. But we learned something, you know, and that mentality, I think, is also forgiving of other people who try things and they don't work as well, because the innovation process is very messy.
Yes.
Some things are going to work, some things are not going to work, some things will work well, some things work less well. If you're not prepared to have that innovation and the messing that goes with it, you'll never get progress. And so for a lot of companies in Japan, because it's that perfectionism, everything has to be perfect, everything has to be correct, no defects, no errors, no mistakes, it's hard for them to innovate. Because innovation has that risk of failure in it.
Yes.
So how do you overcome that problem of letting people have the trust to make a mistake, have the trust to experiment with something new, potentially fail, lose money, whatever? How do you create that trust?
So I guess I guess like, you know, all these plans that you make, investment that you make, and like if the investment is making a return, in what kind of terms, like it's also about the business. Like I think it's never gonna change, but it's both about business and also about your like soul and mentality. So once like you have a good soul, like you do good deeds, like you try to make things perfect, that's good. But unless it makes sense in terms of business, like I think people is gonna lose trust. Okay, maybe you're creating something that's like wonderful, like the perfect and the best thing in the world, but if that's losing money and if that's losing you know, good like life for the employees, obviously they like people who's directing it or leading it's going to be accused. But at the same time, like even if you only do business and think of the money, like then you would never even think about the continuity. So I mean, continuity is not necessarily something that's very like super important, but you should understand that like, you know, for instance, let's say culture or like you know, making things better is like one kind of a huge human greed, and once it's like achieved, it's great. So just simply like making food better, like cooking meat better, or cooking vegetables better. Like, you know, like in order to live, you don't have to do it that much at certain point, but because you keep doing it, then that becomes the culture, is what makes people better people, or what makes people's life better. So we are not trying to just make money to live, but we want to make our lives and also other people's lives better. And that's one also, like, you know, very important part. So I think the combination of both, like how you're gonna weigh out your investment and return, it can't just be about money, or it can't just be about like something beautiful.
If you want to be successful as a leader, do the Leadership Training for Managers course. All companies need people who can both manage and lead. Leading people screams out for real skills in communication, dealing with all different types of people, being excellent at innovation, planning, delegation, handling mistakes, doing performance reviews really well, and inspiring and motivating the team. Do the Leadership Training for Managers course now in either Japanese or English. Are you doing business with Japan? Do you really know how things work? Japan Business Mastery provides the answers. Do you have the right networks and know how to create them? Do you know how to get on the same wavelength with Japanese buyers? Do you know what being trustworthy looks like from the Japanese perspective? Japan Business Mastery is based on more than 30 years' experience in Japan and will become your go-to guide. Want to succeed in Japan? Buy Japan Business Mastery now. Also, the time frame is different. I mean, American companies are working off quarterly returns, you know, because they go to the market every quarter, announce their results, it impacts their share price up or down. A quarter is an incredibly short period of time to working on the strategy for a company. If you're just thinking every quarter, I think to myself, wow, that's not probably the best long-term way of planning for the company. And so in your company's case, you know, your 18th generation is a long time frame there, you know, back to the 1500s. So your mentality about time is also different, I think, and that gives it a chance to have a little bit of long-term planning. And so possibly things that your grandfather did, like with Paris, right? He decided, okay, we're going to have something in Paris. And today the company reaps the benefit of having that operation in Paris. Or other things that, you know, maybe decisions your father took around, you know, we're going to rebuild the headquarters. And you've got a beautiful headquarters now and a beautiful shop that you rebuilt. It's fantastic. And so that's a generational thing. It's a time frame which is different. It's just a bit longer. You can plan for the future a bit more. In terms of bringing the brand forward, one of the things about Japan which is quite difficult is inheritance tax. I don't need to know the numbers for your family. I'm not asking that, but a lot of people may not know this, but families like your own can get killed by, you know, massive amounts of inheritance tax you've got to pay to the government when generations pass on. So obviously your stewardship of the company financially has been very successful to get through that, because it's a huge amount of money. Even in my simple case, I have to think about inheritance tax for my children. And it's like, boy, it's a lot of dough here. You know, if you make any money, the government gets a lot of it. So you've obviously done very well. So making money is important to make sure it keeps going generation to generation, no question about that. In terms of thinking about the market shrinking, the market's aging, and the number of young people shrinking. Also, you know, young people are not marrying as much. They're not probably drinking as much as previous generations. You see really generational changes. Are you noticing any particular generational changes around things like wagashi? Is that tends to be your consumer base tends to be rather older group, or it's still across different ages?
So wagashi just generally tend to be for older people, I would say, as compared to Western sweets, because as I mentioned, like we use less butter, less dairy, and all this, mostly vegan. So I guess I like when you get older, like you want something lighter to consume, but if you still want to consume like sweets, like they would choose ours. And when you're younger, you can eat whatever that's there. But as you get older, you think about your diet and like you think about like what you consume. So so like our customers, like because like our price point of the sweets is higher than usual other things that's like sold in deli or convenience stores. So because of this, I would say the customer base is usually older, but at the same time, wagashi is only pretty much produced and like distributed in Japan, especially the high quality ones. And you know, it's very open. Like the world has not known yet. If you think about sushi, like maybe 20-30 years ago, did so many people ate in the world? I don't think so. But after 20-30 years, I think a lot of people are eating it, and the market for sushi seems to be maybe not so big, but now it's huge.
Yeah.
So
not enough tuna.
Yes. So basically, like, you know, what you like for the future, I have a big hope in Japanese sweets. It's also again vegan, vegetarian. So I don't think many people in the world is going to be angry about us making azuki beans and eating it. So that's like how I see it now. I guess like younger Japanese people more also attracted to Western sweets. There are so many good pâtissiers like bringing like great chocolates and every good sweets into Japan. But at the same time, like a lot of Japanese people, a lot of foreigners are coming into Japan, especially with the like cheap Japanese yen and low, like, you know, cost of living and all this. So I think there's like more and more chance for them to like know about it. I don't think 100 people is gonna like it, but I think maybe 5 to 10 people will like it, and that 5 to 10 people are our target. So
I'm one of those people. I mean, I had my first experience with Japanese sweets in Takarazuka. I was visiting the home of a Japanese student who had been studying English in Brisbane, my hometown. And she'd actually done Shonji Kempo, and she came and trained in our dojo, our karate dojo. And then when I came back to Japan in 1979, in that summer, I visited her place in Takarazuka, and her mother just had some Japanese traditional sweets to go with the tea.
Yes.
I'd never had it before.
Right.
The first time I ate one, I went, oh, this is good. Immediately I thought,
really?
This is good.
I
really liked it. But I know that for a lot of foreigners, they don't like it.
Yes,
they don't like the texture, or they don't like the not sweet enough or whatever. But it straight away, bang, I like this. And I don't even eat Western cakes at all, really.
Right.
I hardly eat Western cakes at all. I eat wagashi, that's it.
Oh, okay.
So I'm the bit of a hen-nug agent, you know, I'm the strange foreigner who likes that type of Japanese thing.
Yes.
But in terms of, do you think that you would branch out of Japan beyond Paris and have
possibly
stores in other parts of the world?
So our mission is, as I like first mentioned, to make the best of Japanese sweets, or like best sweets in the world. So in order for us to do that, and especially we are specialized in a category of Japanese sweets, which is wagashi. For instance, like Japanese beans, like azuki, it's only pretty much produced in Asia, like especially in Japan, and also
Australia too, by the way.
A lot in China as well.
They're growing in Queensland, where I come from. They started growing azuki beans there about 20, 30 years ago.
Okay. Yes.
Maybe they're not supplying Japan to what you're doing, but they're growing.
So the production of Japanese azuki in Japan is about 60,000 tons, and in China is like maybe 250,000 tons, and other parts of the world is maybe like 10,000. So China, like not China, but like Canada started making for the import for Japan and all this. But anyhow, like as you may know, Japan has a very high quality standards. So if you look at the strawberries, like you see in the box, like the same size, same color strawberries, like all laid down. So azuki bean as well, like when we make the selection of beans, like we choose the same color, same size, especially because azuki bean is very hard. So when you boil it, unless like you have the same color and same size, the texture is going to be not smooth, but some parts going to be tougher and some parts going to be too soft or whatsoever. So like that kind of like the perfection that's happening in Japan is not there in other parts of the world at this moment. But
and when you gave that talk at the French Chamber, I asked you, actually, if you remember in the Q&A, I asked you about the average age of Japanese farmers now is around about 70.
Oh, yes.
And we've got declining population and a lot of artisans, farmers, specialists are passing on, and there's no successors. I was asking you about the supply of Azuki beans of that quality in the future. So I asked you whether you were buying the farms to vertically integrate or not.
Not necessarily, but then so for instance, like right now it's only produced in Japan, but then let's say like coffee or chocolates or other products which is like produced in everywhere in the world. Not necessarily like the coffee, like there are many varieties. So coffee maybe from Colombia, maybe from Kilimanjaro, maybe from Blue Mountain, maybe from Indonesia or Hawaii or whatsoever. So there are so many different choices, and like people have different palates, and like because like all these people are producing and also consuming coffee in their own way in different parts of the world, that's why the quality of coffee becomes much better. So the quality of Japanese beans are very good in Japan, but then like if it was produced in other parts of the world and if it was also consumed, I think overall the quality is going to be good. And so for instance, wine, like Burgundy wine can be the best in the world, but nowadays like Chile makes wine, New Zealand makes wine, Australia, America, all these yes, and it's getting better. It's not gonna like lesser the value of wines that's produced in Burgundy, but then all these other parts of the world, there are so many good qualities of wine, and that's gonna make a better industry. Sushi too, because of California rolls. For Japanese, as a Japanese person going to other parts of the world, looking at Japanese restaurants run by Chinese people who's making California rolls, is not a Japanese restaurant. It's like how I first thought, but then because of those restaurants and those California rolls, now people are more interested in sushi, and because of that, a lot of foreigners come into Japan to eat the real, so-called real sushi.
Yeah, we want the real thing.
I mean, obviously, like I also like California rolls, or like spider roll or salmon skin roll, or these like other funky rolls. Like I like that too, and like this is how like culture develops, and this is how things gonna get better. And I'm just hoping for wagashi too that's going to happen. It's my prospect in the future, and we don't have to be taking up all the shares. We just want to be making the best out of it. So
well, that's also a question, isn't it? Because when you've been doing something so well for such a long time, and people are very proud of the quality of the product they're producing, and you've got a certain defined product lineup, and there probably aren't too many new things in the wagashi world, I guess, because it's all been defined over hundreds of years.
Yes.
But if you want to take to another level or take it to a different direction, can't be that easy to get people to support that internally, because they are sold on what we've always done. And particularly I think in Japan, Japanese people don't like risk.
Right.
They like this, the tried and true, reliable things they're doing, and experimentation. That's probably not a good idea. Let's keep doing what we've always done. That's safest route. So to actually respond to the future and to take the company a different direction, or to take the product lineup in a different direction, that mightn't be that easy, I think, internally. I'm just wondering how you would navigate that.
It's very true. So for myself, for Toraya, there are many customers who has been eating Toraya's products since before I was born. So for instance, like if we said, okay, maybe we want to change the taste, but maybe they don't want us to change the taste. So if we do something new, like a lot of times people say something about it. Definitely negatively too, but also positively. So especially our business is B2C, where we have a lot of interaction with many customers, and not like B2B business or like finance. It's different, and because of so some, like for instance, like when we went to Paris, like we brought something that's like very original, and after us, for a while, it was very difficult to get the local customers. So we decided to start using local fruits into our sweets. At that time, I hear that using of the local fruits into the sweets, or like any kind of sweets into sweets, was not like acceptable to a lot of, like, let's say artisans or people. But we started doing it, and after that, like maybe now is like 20 years or 30 years after that, people actually like things with fruits in it. So people's mindset changes over time, because like whatever, like it's like what we make is what we eat, and the constant, like whatever we consume has been changing over time. So we always have to adjust it into the new thing. So that is like the time when we try to do something new, and if that's accepted, or if that was like actually tasting good, we can get some more customers who are more into the new taste.
It's interesting. A friend of mine is Jerome Shushan, who is the president for Godiva here in Japan. Very, very creative guy.
Yes.
He wrote a book called Target, and has a Japanese version first and the English version. Very interesting book on leadership, and so creative. He recently they opened a patisserie in Yuracho, Ginza, Yuracho area, for Godiva. Like they're a chocolate company, but they're actually doing pastries as well. And I tried to get into the store, but I couldn't get in the store because it's a huge lineup. All these people wanted to try it. And I thought, wow, and he also very famously, he took out a full page color ad in the Nikkei around Valentine's Day saying, don't buy chocolates for Valentine's Day. Because, the Giri Choco, the sort of very cheap obligation chocolates that in this country women give to men on Valentine's Day, and then White Day, the men give something back. He was saying, don't do that. And this is a big ad, right? And instead, give really good quality stuff to people you really value, and stop this, which is very controversial, but it got like a huge run in the media, got a lot of attention on Godiva and their chocolates, and risky, but huge success. So very innovative guy, Jerome. If you ever get a chance to meet Jerome, he's interesting to talk to. Very, very inspirational character. Like him a lot. So again, there may be things in the future that we can't even imagine, and taking the whole wagashi scene, maybe not in a different direction, but having maybe branch off areas that just, again, like the fruit you talked about, which the mainstream is there, but we go a little bit here, a little bit there to experiment or add some dimension or create some new image, because, as the 70s plus generation start to pass on,
it's very,
you've got to get the next generation coming through, right?
Yes, it's very tough thing to think about. I guess like it's all about the product and the quality. So once the product is good and quality is good, whether it's new or old, I think people's gonna like it. Then it's going to be good. And sometimes it's what I wonder is, if, like, in terms of localization, if you keep localizing, and if everybody starts doing around the world for any kind of things, like including food, or like clothes, or I don't know, even race or whatsoever, if we start branding everything's gonna be the same, which I feel is kind of boring. So it's a very tough, decision to make. It's easy to adapt and like decide to do something that these people like, but that's gonna make whatever that was original to be like same as all the other things. So,
I had something I'd never even heard of before in Singapore, I think called mango mochi.
Okay.
It was just a simple food court. I was hungry, so I sat down to get a meal or something, and on the menu it had mango mochi. I thought, what the hell is mango mochi? It was fantastic. We don't have this in Japan, by the way. I've never heard of mango mochi in Japan. If everyone who's ever go to Singapore, try the mango mochi. It's great. Very unique, It's like taking a Japanese mochi idea and adding mango to it. Wow. I think Japanese may not think like that, right? So there may be something in the foreign enterprise area where people are coming up with wagashi, different varieties,
I think so.
Which could be very innovative as well.
So as being like president of Toraya, this is like one like company. Like I think in the entire industry, I think everything should be branded and all this, and like everything should move forward or like make better things, take risks. That's gonna make the industry better. For myself, like I would say maybe like 10 to 20% of the things are like something that I try. And even within that 10 to 20%, there are ways in which I think of the risk. Like obviously, like unless you take a risk, you're not gonna get the return. But if risk is a risk, so that's like very tough judgment to do. But yes, well, I definitely have to do
capital
both.
investment with no guarantee of return, and it's an experiment, and it might fail, but it might succeed too.
Yes.
Yeah, you've got a culture in Toraya which is 18 generations long. So I guess from your point of view, there's no need to build a culture because your culture is around high quality, best presentation, consistency of offer. So you don't have to worry too much about culture, I guess. Or as a next generation, are you thinking about cultural change in the company, or what do you think about culture? Is your job to preserve the culture, or can it take it in a new direction? What do you think?
I think it's both, and like these changes wouldn't happen because of you, but it's more about like the environment that you're in. So some of the biggest challenges that we had, one is to move from Kyoto to Tokyo, which was this family who has been ordering our sweets for over 200 years, 250 years every single year. They decided to move from Kyoto to Tokyo. And at that time, our sales, more than 50% of our sales was from them. So are we going to continue or not? I mean, the 12th generation decided to also continue and open a shop in Tokyo.
Did they keep the shop in Kyoto?
Yes, we kept the shop in Kyoto, but also opened the shop in Tokyo. So that's not necessarily like a natural instinct thing, but it's like because of the thing that happened and surrounding you, and also maybe like let's say World War II, like and there was a huge airstrike in Tokyo, and our like one of the only factory blew up. So that time, like I mean, we had no choice of like rebuilding it and continuing and going. And at that time, we couldn't get, let's say, sugar, so we decided to start making bread and providing bread to like and selling it to people in Tokyo and stuff. So and we don't do that anymore. So but like all these changes are not necessary because like you want to make a change, but there's some adaptation that we had to make. And
in that case, did something like the COVID-19, the Corona pandemic, I mean, we're all stuck at home.
Yes.
A lot of the hospitality industry suffered. A lot of the food industry suffered. And I'm sure, Toraya must have suffered as well. So you can't predict that. But
yes. So we had to close down like about, like all the stores that we had. So our sales has dropped like quite significantly during that time. At the same time, we were able to as a whole, think about like, how we can manage it, cut down the cost whatsoever. So every single people in every division decided to like look into things. Okay, sometimes like we had the newspaper, all these things that actually nobody never read, that's being subscribed. We decided to cut it all this, and after COVID, our sales has come back. I mean, we made all these different reformations, and so to make the sales better, I mean, obviously, like because we closed down all the shops, like we were doing the online shops, and then that sales has gone up, and that customer base has gone up too. And because of all these factors, the sales is like even better than before. And because we were able to cut down the cost, our profitability went well. So I mean, it's like chicken and egg. I think like all these like changes, we are probably subconsciously thinking about maybe making it at one point, but because of this like societal impact that happened, we decided to try to do more. So
online shopping, right? You probably before COVID, you probably thought about it, but didn't commit a lot of capital or time or effort to it. But suddenly, it's like us, we didn't think about online training as a training provider until COVID. We couldn't teach in the classroom anymore. So suddenly we pivoted everything, and now we have both, where we can say anytime, anywhere, we can deliver, and that's again an additional thing which we didn't have.
So I guess like it's like the action is both like chicken and egg, like whether you started or whether you had to do it because of the societal change. But like always, I think daily, like you always think about, okay, maybe I can do this, maybe I can do that. All these ideas are there. Maybe like something that you're executing is like just like 10% of it, but because you always think about it, you always have the idea. But when things come, like you start doing it, and I think some of the things that we tried during COVID wasn't successful, so that we withdraw. But something that was successful, we just continue.
Well, I mean, there's no guarantee that companies are going to survive. I mean, I used to like going to H-In Raw in Chinatown. Great Chinese restaurant there, has been going since Meiji, like your company moved up here in Meiji period, right? I think they're about 1883 or something. I think H-In Raw started, I can't exactly remember, but and then they closed.
I see.
They closed about a year or so ago, it's sort of towards the end of COVID, to be honest, not at the beginning. I was so shocked, like, oh my God, that's my favorite Chinese restaurant in Chinatown. It's closed down. Gone, completely gone. Right. Shocking. So guaranteed to stay in business is no guarantee with something like a pandemic. So the fact that you could actually pivot to online and then it comes back and you've got this is an additional line of business is great.
Yes.
If someone was going to, say someone you met in Paris or someone you met in the States rang you up and say, hey, Mitsu, my company is sending me to Japan to run the organization in Japan. But Mitsu, I don't know how to be successful in Japan. You've been running your family business 18 generations. Well, how should I run the business? What would be some advice? How should I be successful in Japan? What would you tell them?
It really depends on like what kind of organization or industry he's in, obviously, or he or she is in. So it's very just like not easy to put it in just one simple way. But I guess it's for any kind of businesses. But I think you need to try hard and to do the things that you think is good to do. Because sometimes like people do things in a wrong way, or doing things knowing that can be wrong. Those things are not good. But when you do things in like that you think is good or right, even if it's a failure, it's not going to be a failure. Is my like learnings that I got from somebody who I respect from Switzerland. So so it's not necessarily about Japan, but I think it's for anywhere, and that applies in Japan too. So when you're making conversation to Japanese people, they might be shy, and if you think they're shy, maybe there are some more ways you can explore into them. So if you start talking to them, maybe they will start talking you back like a little bit more. So you just need to trust your instinct. Like success is in yourself already. It's just like you need to reach there, and trusting yourself is the most important thing, I think.
And should I mean you went to the high school in the States and then you went to college there and you went to France. I don't know whether you learned French while you were in Paris, but presumably you learned some French while you were there. A little bit. But so should they learn Japanese when they come here? If this theoretical person is going to run the organization in Japan, should they study Japanese?
I mean, for instance, Toraya, like our company, if you cannot speak Japanese, it's very, very difficult. Unless you're super intelligent and skillful, or like great human being who can make everything in English work, like maybe start the operation in America and work out, okay, or UK and work out, okay, maybe that person can be fine. But I mean, as just in terms of regular operation that's happening with this like 900 people, mostly done in Japanese. So it's very difficult without learning Japanese to be successful. I don't know in 5-10 years, because all these technologies are advancing advancing like crazy
so quickly. Yeah.
so quickly. So I mean, when I go to conventions and some people don't understand Japanese, but from the other countries, some like younger ones are just doing the like like live translation
Yeah.
on the phone.
Yeah.
And if that works out, okay, maybe it will yes, but I mean, obviously, at the same time, like if you work in a foreign company or like finance industry, consulting firms, which you may also deal with foreigners or like people who speak your own language, and connecting it to Japan, it can be good. But just in general, Japanese people really are still very shy in speaking in English. I think it's changing dramatically like now, and I think it's going to change in 5-10 years, but at this time of 2024, I think it's still very difficult without speaking Japanese.
Yeah. How about your definition of leadership? How would you define leadership?
Leadership is I would say is needed to lead somebody who's not you. And how do I define leadership? I'm sorry, maybe I will.
That's okay. You take your time and think about it. We'll just cut this bit out and we'll take it. But you raise a good point. Lead someone who is not you, because often as leaders we think, well, everyone wants to be like me. Everyone wants to be a leader. Everyone wants to lead this way. But actually, no. People who are following us have got totally different motivations, viewpoints, perspectives, are not like us, and we've got to lead people who are totally different to us.
So like company and organizations are formed with many people, more than one person. It's more than 2, sometimes 5 or 10 or 100 or 900, like Toraya, or even more, much more. And everybody's from different background, different ethnicity or whatsoever. And in that case, like whatever each person wants is different. So. But like since you're gonna be doing something, you need to motivate other people. It's like one of the first questions you ask. Like you need to be able to motivate other people to move in this certain direction. So that certain direction can be different. I mean, one can be whatever, like the president or like I want maybe, but then to achieve the goal, let's say to make the best sweets or to make wagashi more global, there are all these various ways. So each people can think, if there is a clear vision or clear direction, they can sort of choose their own way or suggest their own way. And the leaders has to be able to lead them to that path rather than like blocking it. And also like understand that like your ideas is not everything. Obviously, like other people's idea are also similar, and if that idea was good, you should be able to take it. So as a president of the company, one of the other questions you asked is that whether I will be diversing our companies into like other parts of the world. And I would say yes, and there are all these different ways to do it, but I need somebody who would be doing it for me or for us. And unless there is that kind of person, it's impossible. But that kind of person cannot be just like naturally like found sometimes or naturally brought up. Like every year, like we have new employees coming in, but maybe some person wants a company to open a company in America. And then if that person is very motivated, and if that strategy is good, and if that aligns with the company's decision, we can open a shop or company in America with that person's idea. And it doesn't have to always go in the line of company's strategy. We have lined it up, and this is what we are going to do. It's not necessarily the only way. I believe they can be suggesting, and companies can taking it.
Do you have something in the family, like in many cases families record like core principles of the Kurokawas, for example, and each generation, this gets passed down. Like, this is what we believe, and how you treat the customer, or how you treat the team, or what our values, or whatever. Is there like a type of ancient document that's been passed down generation to generation?
There's not necessarily much. Like, we don't want to make too many rules to ourselves. But then there's a time when there's like a huge fire in Kyoto, and the ninth generation decided to make this, to write it. Like in a code of conduct sort of thing, and in there are things like, okay, wake up early in the morning to clean the shop front to welcome the customers, and there are things like, okay, sometimes like a child or maybe woman comes to the shop and order things, but you don't you treat anybody equally, whether it's like this person or that person. You need to treat everybody equally. So that's another thing what that was there. One more thing that I wanted to say, like so there's also, so Japan, like there's like older people are usually like kind of like respected naturally. I mean, it's also in different parts of the world, but they're saying even if that person is your boss or in a hierarchy of the company, even if that person is higher than you, if that person was wrong, just say it, correct it, and do the right thing. Is like another thing. So these are like some of the takes. I want to talk about just one thing about succession. So for our family, it's always been just like one child per generation is the person who's going to take over. Yeah,
really.
So it's like actually pretty natural. Like,
but that's in Japanese cultures. Normally, the eldest son.
Yes.
There may be multiple daughters and sons, but the eldest son, the chonan, is chosen.
Right.
And is nominated, and the other kids know. You're not going to be in the business. You're going to go and do something else, right? That's a normal structure.
Yes,
right?
That's very normal structure. It's called ishi soden. It's like one child takes like the essence or the over it, and I think it's very actually a good idea. Like, so our company is 18th generation, and actually like a couple of years ago, our family business case was on Harvard Business School case study. And in the professor was telling us that, like, if you had 3 siblings and if you were going to multiply for 18th generation, it's going to be the population of Japan. so you need to kind of like draw a line into business and family at one point. And for instance, like for me, like I have 2 older sisters, but if like they're doing their own thing and I'm doing Toraya, and we are all happy with each other, but I think like if like one of my sisters come into business and if we start doing the business, I think we're gonna really fight, and that's gonna ruin the family relationship. But for me, family relationship is like more important than business, so I really don't want to do it. If my sister is gonna come in, I think I'm gonna get out of the company, do something else. So
well, I mean, the Japanese traditional system is the oldest inherits the wealth of the family, basically, and also take the responsibility for taking care of the parents. My wife's a twin, and her twin elder sister's, by 30 minutes older or something. But elder sister,
really,
his chojo is to take care of the parents, and that's.
I would say it's not necessarily the case, because like if you think about the siblings, like maybe I mean, obviously that can happen, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but sometimes like like second daughter is close to the mom more than the first daughter, and in that case, like obviously like the second daughter usually takes care of mom. So I think like different from family to family.
Well, this is a very traditional Nagoya family, so
yes.
It's the hierarchy.
Maybe
the eldest is going to inherit.
I guess. But I just wanted to point out that I would say even my like grandparents' generation is not necessarily the case. Things are easing out, I guess, like after the war.
Well, this has been a fascinating discussion.
Thank you.
I think for me, it's such an honor to meet the 18th generation of a Japanese business and family business like this, because it's so, as I said at the beginning, for foreigners, it's such a rare thing, it's such a precious thing. And to hear from your side, what it's like to be inside the business, how you strategized it, how you thought about the succession, how your dad thought about it too, in terms of stepping back and letting you step forward. a lot of learnings there. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Really great.
Very nice to talk to you.
So please join us again for our next episode of Japan's top business interviews.